Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today's video is on my 2013 Audi A6 bi-turbo diesel. This is the 3 litre. I've already done a review video on this, which I'll link in the description. Today's video is just about the modifications I've done. I've just recently got some more modifications done, the suspension. So I'm just going to quickly run through all the modifications, what effect I think it's had on the car, whether it's made it better or worse, and actually some interesting comparisons with the C8 S6 as well, the later generation Audi A6. So I'll just show you quickly around the car, talk through the modifications I've done very briefly, then I'll get in, have a drive and tell you all about them. The first modifications I did to this car were engine related, fairly straightforward. A fuel sensor upgrade to allow greater fueling under a remap obviously, and a very crude airbox modification, which you can see here, which I believe people do similar for on the RS6. I also had the transmission software updated. The final modification, as I mentioned, was the suspension. So I've just changed this out from the standard Audi S-Line suspension. It's on IBACs, and I think looks much better now. The wheels fill the arches much better. These are 20-inch wheels. That's not the reason I did it. I did it for performance and handling. And I'll come on to that and tell you all about it when I'm out for a drive. So we'll start with those engine modifications. This car would have come as standard with 313 horsepower, 650 Newton meters, I think that's about 480 pound-foot. And modified, this was not rolling roaded after the modifications, but the guy who's done this, Bobby Singh, has done a lot of these bi-turbo diesel engines, knows them extremely well. And a lot of those that he's modified in the same way as this have subsequently been rolling roaded and given very consistent figures. So this is likely running 410, 400 horsepower, something like that, and between 820 and 850 Newton meters, which is over 600 pound-foot. So a really big increase. And for the kind of car it is, I don't think it lacks power or torque. You know, particularly that torque figure is really impressive. And it makes it a reasonably quick car. I use this for kind of daily journeys, long distance journeys, and one of my main criteria for having a kind of modest power level and speed is being able to overtake people at that kind of mid-range of speed, 45 to 55 miles an hour, say, where you need quite a lot of power and torque to get past people safely unless you've got a long stretch of road. That's why I want a moderately fast car. And it delivers. I really can't complain. It's adequate. You can have some fun. It's not super fast, but it's okay for what it is. So that got me thinking about comparisons with the C8 S6. So the next generation of A6, S6 platform, Audi of course having had some legendary engines, petrol engines in their S6s over the years, in the C8 generation turned to only diesel, a very similar engine to this 3 litre bi-turbo diesel, with the addition of an electric compressor. I've heard very mixed opinions about the efficacy, let's call it, of that compressor. Some people say it works brilliantly to fill in the turbo lag. Some people say it's totally useless. I haven't driven one, so I don't know. But it had 350 horsepower as standard, so a bit more than this is standard. It also had 700 Newton meters. I think that's what, 510, 515 pound-foot of torque. So a little bit more than this would have had as standard, but not a huge amount more, and actually quite a lot less than a lightly modified previous generation bi-turbo diesel like this. This is significantly more powerful. It's got an extra 50-60 horsepower. It's got an extra 120 to 150 Newton meters of torque. That's significant. And that's also borne out in the performance figures. As standard, C8 S6 0 to 60 in 5.1 seconds. This car, lightly modified, I've timed with a draggy at 4.6 seconds to 60. That's only half a second, but I still think that's quite a significant difference. You know, it's quite an increase in performance, bearing in mind the forte of this car, being such a heavy car, is not 0 to 60 times, it's that mid-range acceleration once you're rolling, where I think this would gain even more on a C8 S6. Anyway, just a really interesting comparison, I thought, because the equivalent S6 will cost you probably, what, £15,000 at least more as I speak in autumn 2025. And yes, that is a lot of more money. You get a lot more car, it's a lot more modern. But if you're old-fashioned like me and you don't want a touch screen like you get on the C8 instead of this old-fashioned looking screen, and you like buttons for all of these controls, Rather, again, on the S6 C8, this is all touchscreen. You know, who wants temperature controls through a touchscreen? Not me. Now, if you like that, obviously the C8 may be the car for you. If you're a bit more old-fashioned like me, and you prefer dials and switches, and I think this is one of the best eras of daily usable cars and interiors in many ways, then get this, save yourself £15,000 or more. Yes, it's going to be older, you may have more problems associated with it because of that. You know, spend 1,500 quid modifying it. You've got a great car, I think, in comparison with that C8. Anyway, just an interesting comparison, I thought. They actually share pretty much the same drivetrain as I've already said, including the ZF 8-speed gearbox. This functions okay in here. It's fine once you're rolling in at speed. It works very well. Works well on the manual paddles, but it's the low speed driving that this gearbox is not very good at. It can't decide what gear to use. It can leave you in the lurch when you press the accelerator and gives you nothing in return. And by all accounts, it's just as bad in the C8 S6. And I think this is down to Audi's software. It's not a hardware issue. The ZF 8-speed is in all kinds of other cars where it performs much better due to the better software, the mapping that they've got. So that brings me on to the next kind of modification that I did. I was going to get a gearbox remapped, a tune to try and make that issue better. In the end, I decided just to go for a software update. So this was on version 1 of Audi's ZF 8-speed software, and I think they've done another 7 or so versions of updates. So I got this with the most recent version of the software, an update. Didn't cost me too much, and it made some difference, but really not that much. And in retrospect, it probably wasn't the right option to go for. Perhaps a gearbox remap would have made this perform a bit better. Anyway, it doesn't particularly bother me, particularly the kind of journeys that I do, not much town driving. I'm quite happy to drive on the paddles to override this issue. But it is a kind of inherent problem with these Audis and this gearbox, I think. So, final modifications that I did, suspension on this car. These came with air or coils as an option. This was on coils. And if you went for coils, Audi did 3 further options. They did the standard kind of SE trim suspension. Then they did the S-Line suspension, slightly stiffer, also 20mm lower. And then they do the S-Line Sport suspension, a further 10mm lower and stiffer. I think that's, this was the S-Line suspension. I think it's 1BE, 1 versus 1BV, if you're looking at the Audi codes, option codes. And aesthetically, I don't think it looks as good as the S-Line Sports. Doesn't fill the arches despite being on 20-inch alloys particularly well. But it wasn't the aesthetics that bothered me. It was the performance and the lack of body control. So in the corners, this thing was pretty bad. So much body control, and that made you push wide and scrub wide, and just not fun. Ridiculous amounts of body control, even for the size of the car. Of course, it's a balance between comfort and body control to some extent, but it bothered me that it was so little fun round the corners and such hard work. So I decided to swap out the suspension. I went for pretty much OEM Sachs dampers. I thought change them out at the same time as I'm doing the coil seems like a no-brainer. And then went for an iBack Pro kit for the coils. And I think these are remarkably good value in terms of performance and how much you pay. I mean, 200 quid for the set of coils, I think that's great value. I've used the iBack Pros on previous cars I've owned, and I've been really impressed with the good performance and the balance between comfort and body control. So I was optimistic. It dropped it to about 30mm from standard, so probably another 10 to 15mm over what I had on the S-Line suspension. And I was a bit worried that I would start bottoming out on the terrible roads around me. In fact, it's been okay, so very pleased with that, because previously there was a lot more movement and lack of body control. You bounced over the bumps a lot more. Because this is much tighter and allows less body movement over the bumps, even though it's lower, it's not bottoming out. So really pleased with that. But the main thing is the handling performance and the ability in the corners. It has absolutely transformed this car. So pleased. It's reduced the body roll hugely, and it's still a decent level of comfort. When the guy at the garage changed this, he took it out to test it and said, oh, that's really quite stiff. I don't think it is. I mean, it's fairly firm suspension. I generally prefer firm suspension. For me, it's still plenty comfortable enough, but such a difference in the corners. That body control doesn't push wide, reduces understeer. It's actually fun to drive around the corners fast now, which is what I was looking for. So really, really pleased. I'm coming up to some roads I haven't driven for a while with some better corners. So I'm going to really test it out now and show you what it's like. That's already so much better. Oh, incredible difference. The body just doesn't roll nearly as much. And of course, when the body rolled, it pushes you wide. So you're always feeling like you were struggling to make it round the corner. I mean, obviously this is still a big, heavy car, but it's actually fun round these corners. That's so much better. It makes the steering feel more direct. You don't have so much understeer. Not all the time trying to push you wide as that body rolls out from the corner. Yeah, brilliant. I'm so pleased I did it. Excellent value for money. One of the best modifications I've ever done to any car. I'd go that far. It's made such a big difference to the handling. Not only more fun, but it gives you so much more confidence in the car. This car really did struggle with its weight and the lack of, as I keep saying, body control. And it just didn't give you confidence that the car was going to go exactly where you put it and not push you wide or understeer. And would highly recommend this suspension change for anyone with an Audi A6. Made a world of difference. Well, I'm going to finish enjoying this last bit of good road. Thank you very much for watching, and watch out for more videos soon.